Hi everyone, today I wanted to do a little bit of a different video and just kind of show you my top drawer makeup right now. So I'm going to show you my top drawer in my bathroom, which is where I keep my everyday makeup, and I do switch it out from time to time, but I just wanted to show you what's in there right now and how it's organized. You're looking at Eva on my counter right here, one of her favorite places to be. So let's get into this drawer. So here's the drawer. There's a little bit more that's in the back that I'll have to pull out, but here's an overview. And let's just start right from the very front. So at the front here, I have a number of concealers. One of them is the Item Beauty concealer. I have this in the shade 100. It's a really good, very pale neutral shade. This is one that's a nice neutral. It's a little bit more of a peachy neutral, so it's not too cool, it's not too yellowy warm, and it's not too grayish either. So that's a really nice one that can just be kind of used all over the face on lighter makeup days, but is also great on top of really any foundation. It gives, to me, a bit more of a kind of dewy, radiant finish. The next one here is the newest concealer in my collection. This is the Huda Beauty concealer. It's the new one that she's come out with pretty recently. I have this in the shade Whipped Cream, and this is a super, super light shade. It's even way lighter than the Item Beauty one. It's definitely the lightest complexion product that I have in my entire collection, aside from the Danessa Myricks white vision cover, which is just a pure white. So this is super light, so this is great for lightening up a look if I've used perhaps a foundation that's a little bit too dark and I want to brighten up in certain areas. This is a perfect one for that. I think it's described as having a neutral golden undertone, but I find it to be a fairly kind of neutral. I see a little bit of pink in it as well. So it's just a pretty kind of middle of the road neutral in terms of the color. And I do like that it's really, really light. It's super high coverage, so just a tiny little bit goes a very long way with that one. Okay, next up, the other two concealers that I have in here are the Dior Backstage concealer and the Hourglass Vanish concealer. Both of these, again, I think are in the lightest shades in the range. Dior is in 0N and the Hourglass is in Birch. This Dior concealer gives to me more of a matte finish, kind of like a natural matte, but definitely leaning kind of away from the more radiant finish. And I find the tone of this one to be a little bit dark. I can use it when my skin is at its lightest, but I would probably be more inclined to use it on top of a foundation that is truly light enough for my skin. So not trying to lighten anything up with this one. It has a nice peachy tone in my opinion, and that's great for especially under the eyes. And I find that formula works really nicely under the eyes too. This Hourglass one is one of my favorites. This is one of those very fair neutrals that has a really grayish undertone to it. So this is one that I could use all over my face if I use it pretty lightly and really spread it out quite thinly. But if I build up too much coverage with this one, it just makes my face look much too gray. But this is really great for neutralizing redness because of that. So I prefer it in kind of a lighter layer. Because of the tone of this one, it's one that's good for kind of neutralizing a foundation if I've put on a foundation that's a little bit too pinky or a little bit too peachy. This is really great for kind of balancing everything out because of those slightly grayer tones. To me, it has a natural leaning, slightly radiant finish. And then the other concealer-ish product that is here is my Monika Blunder Blundercover. I love this more and more as I continue to use it. I've had it for several months now, and my love for it just continues to grow. The tone of this is perhaps the closest thing to a perfect complexion match for me, so I love this on lighter makeup days. Just as my one complexion product, I can just apply it where I need it and blend it out, and it looks really natural and has sort of a smoothing quality to it as well. It still looks like kind of naturally moisturized skin, but smoother. It gives a really good amount of coverage. It's quite buildable. And I also like to pair this with skin tints and like lighter coverage foundations just to add extra coverage wherever I want. It looks beautiful under the eyes. I often like to just tap in with my fingers and tap this under my eyes. It gives a nice brightening, but not too bright. And it's just a super excellent formula and excellent color as well. Here I have my Charlotte Tilbury Under Eye Corrector. So this I use almost every day. I used to use the Becca one. Now I'm using the Charlotte Tilbury. I'm not dedicated to any one under eye corrector, but this is my second one of these Charlotte Tilbury ones. I like it quite a lot. It's a little bit more appropriate for me in the summer when I have some fake tan and my skin is a little bit deeper, because this is kind of a dark peachy color, but I'm always putting some sort of concealer over top of this, which is lighter. So this still does a great job of canceling out kind of like green and blue tones and purple tones under my eyes and just brightening them a little bit, even if it's a little dark, because I go over with a little bit of a lighter concealer and it just covers up any of that darkness, so it's not really an issue. Now in this little box here, I have some eyeshadows, some single eyeshadows that I just like to have right on hand every day. So I have my Victoria Beckham Chiffon Lid Lustre. This is a beautiful topper for really any shadow, so I find that really easy to use, and I really like the glimmery effect that it gives. Let's talk about this powder right now because it keeps falling over. So this is the Westman Atelier Vital Skincare Pressed Powder. I have the translucent shade, which looks white in the compact, and this is just a really nice light powder. I mean light in texture. It is also a little bit brightening because of the white shade of it, and it just is really easy to use. I like to use it with my Lisa Eldridge foundation, especially because that one pulls a little bit more matte on me, and I don't want to go in with a heavy powder at all on top of that. I really never want a heavy powder, but I feel like this Westman Atelier one just works especially well with the Lisa Eldridge foundation, just to set in those select areas where I want to set. Now let's get back into these eyeshadows. This one here is the Charlotte Tilbury Eyes to Mesmerize in the shade Exaggereyes. This is just such a perfect everyday go-to shade for me. I find it just so easy to use. The color is not too dark, so it adds a little bit of shadow and definition without being too cool toned. It's a little bit more toward the warm side, but it really suits my skin tone, and I feel comfortable wearing it just on its own with no mascara or anything for really light makeup days as well. Since I'm talking about the Charlotte Tilbury, I want to talk about this Nars concealer. So this is their soft matte concealer. I have it in the shade Affogato, and I actually don't use this on my face anymore because I found that it broke me out, but I just use this as an eye primer now, and it works really nicely. Just a really very thin layer of this works super well as an eye primer, and especially under the Charlotte Tilbury cream shadows. It really prevents them from creasing and makes their wear time last all day, which for me, they certainly don't on their own without some sort of a primer underneath them. And then this here is one of the Revlon cream eyeshadows. This one is the shade Creme Brûlée, I think is what it is. It's a very, very pale, champagne-y, goldy type of shade. Really doesn't add any shadow to my eyes, but I like to use this often as a base for powder eyeshadows actually. So I just put a kind of a wash of this all over my lids. It just adds a really nice, subtle, very delicate kind of shimmery base that you can build on top of. And I just think it works really beautifully under other eyeshadows and provides a great base. Here we have one of the Charlotte Tilbury Pop Shots. This one is the shade Rose Gold, which is definitely the go-to everyday shade for me out of the colors that I have in this formula. It's another one kind of like Exaggereyes. That's just a really easy color for me to wear. Kind of will go with anything, will look good with or without mascara and any type of coverage that I have on my base. So I like to have that in my top drawer. And then we have this Ilia shadow, which is fairly new to me. This one is in the shade Juniper, and this is just one of my favorite colors of all time, and I love how this color looks on my eyes. So I haven't used this too many times. I actually decided to buy it because I got some little sample packets of these Ilia shadows. You can see there's one still in here. I think it came with 4 or 5 shades. I've used all the other ones and tried them. I have one left here that I'm going to try at some point, but I love the Juniper one from the sample so much that I decided to get the full size of this, and this is just such a gorgeous one. It's another one that, although it's kind of colorful, you might not think of it as an everyday shade. It's just super easy for me to wear on an everyday basis. Let's move into some lip stuff here. So I have the Makeup by Mario Moisture Glow lip balms, whatever they're called. This is the shade Pink Glow. I initially tried one of the shimmery shades from the initial release of this product and didn't like it. I actually ended up returning it. I don't tend to really enjoy shimmer on my lips, so that was probably part of the problem. But when I saw that the Pink Glow shade had come out, I was really interested in it. It doesn't have any shimmer, and it's just this very light pink. It's almost like a clear, but with just a hint of pink, and I really like how it looks on my lips. It has a little bit of a minty feeling. It's just a great go-to for every day. Here I have one of the Victoria Beckham glosses. This one is the shade Tan Line. You can see I've gone through a fair amount of that one. The colors in these shots in my bathroom are really not very true. I don't have good lighting in here, so where I think it's necessary or relevant, I will insert some natural light swatches so you can actually see the proper colors of things. And then I have 2 of my Lisa Eldridge lip liners, Fawn, which is definitely my most used. I would pair this with pretty much any lipstick or without any lipstick at all. It looks great with just a little bit of balm. Just outline the lips with this and add a little bit of balm. Then I have the Affair one, which gives a similar effect but is a little bit warmer and deeper than Fawn, which is also a great go-to when I need just a little touch more color on my lips. And then the other 2 liners I have in here are actually eyeliners from Victoria Beckham. So I have the new Sequin Green here, which I've worn every day since I got it. It just works perfectly with every look and on its own, and I really love it because it's not too dark, so it's not going to look too dramatic on the lips. Again, the color is really excellent for me, and I just love that. And then I have the Cocoa liner in here. I have a new one because I went through a whole one of them. So that's my replacement Cocoa, which may be my second favorite liner now behind Sequin Green. I haven't had Sequin Green long enough to really say for sure, but it's a close contender for my #1 spot. Xander's coming for a little visit. Okay, back to the makeup. So let's move into this area here. Here I have my Lisa Eldridge Kitten Mischief lipstick, which is always close at hand. It goes with pretty much any look I want to wear, and it's my all-time favorite lipstick, so I always have that close to me. And then I have the Victoria Beckham Reflect highlighter here. This is the shade Pearl, which is currently the only shade that exists in this range. And I just love this so much. I've continued to use this on a daily basis, basically since I got it. For some reason, I seem to prefer it even to the Westman Atelier Lit Up sticks, which if I didn't have this in here, I would have one of the Lit Up sticks, or I would have one of the Merit highlighters in here, because I love to use a cream highlighter just to kind of enliven the skin, add a little bit of kind of natural radiant skin look if I've been using a lot of powder products. I find that this Victoria Beckham one, there's just something about the formula, maybe about the color, that it just looks better on me than any of the other ones. It seems to highlight and actually brighten like you would expect a highlighter to do wherever I place it. So often I'll get a little bit muddy kind of like around the tops of my cheekbones going up into my eyes, and there's not enough kind of space there. But I find if I add that Victoria Beckham one to that area, it really just brings back the space, opens that area up, and really does highlight the cheekbone and kind of lighten it up as well. I have one of my Victoria Beckham sharpeners here, which I need for lip liners, and I sharpen the eyeliners with them sometimes too. And then this little row here is, well, it's powders and a blush and a bronzer. So I have my Gucci powder, which is one of my favorites actually. I just find this to be really consistent. It's a little bit soft. It gives slightly kind of radiant, not really, it still mattifies, but it's just kind of a creamy appearance on this one. And I just really like how this looks on my skin and wears on my skin. Then here I have the Haus Labs bronzer in the lightest shade. This is a very new purchase for me, so I've only worn it a few times, but I actually love the way it looks. The reason I didn't buy it sooner was because it has hyaluronic acid in it, which I have been avoiding for most of this year because it often tends to break me out. But I was emboldened by my very positive experience with the Merit Great Skin Serum to try this one out, even though it has hyaluronic acid in it. And I'm not sure yet if it's been breaking me out or not. I do tend to just get hormonal breakouts, and there's usually congestion around my chin area. So I can't tell yet, but I can say it hasn't broken me out on my cheeks or my forehead. So that's a good sign. But further testing will be required to fully determine how my skin is reacting or if it's not reacting to it at all. But I find the formula of this one to be just exquisite. It's a beautiful formula and it's a gorgeous color as well. Then right behind that I have one of the RMS blushes. I actually have the shade Sangria in here. I had the French Rosé shade in this drawer for a while, but I recently bought Sangria and have just been trying that out. It's a great color for fall. It's very pigmented, so a light hand is required with that one, but it's very beautiful and the kind of color that can kind of work with most makeup looks for me. And then here I have the Nars Light Reflecting Pressed Powder. I love specifically how this works with the Nars Light Reflecting Foundation, so that's why that's in there. I've been wearing my Nars Light Reflecting Foundation quite a lot, and it just plays beautifully with that powder. And then on the side here, I have another blush. So this is the Suku Melting Powder Blush, the only one that I have. It's a really beautiful, slightly warm but still pretty neutral beigey shade that works again with most makeup looks. I have my Charlotte Tilbury Nudegasm palette in here, mainly for the bronzers, although I quite like the highlighter in this one, and also the kind of more peachy highlighter blush type thing is great for adding a little bit of radiance and warmth to a look if you need to add a little bit of warmth to it. And then I have the Natasha Denona My Dream Cheek Trio here. I love the highlighters in this one and I love the blush in this too actually. So this is just another good one for everyday, really quick and easy to use, and looks really nice on the skin. Over here, I have two mascaras in my drawer right now. Actually, there's another one further back. I'll show you in a second. So the Tower 28 Make Waves mascara, and then the L'Oreal Voluminous in the kind of burgundy shade. I really like this for if I don't want to go too dramatic with the lashes and I just want kind of a lighter lash. This burgundy shade is really nice, looks good with my green eyes. And then I have this brow pencil. This is the new Benefit Fiber Brow Pencil. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I've talked about that recently in a video and I just absolutely love that for my brows. Moving back here, let's just go with this. This is the Benefit 24-Hour Brow Setter, which I like to often pair with that brow pencil. I have never tried a clear brow gel that works better and holds better than that one. I have another green color corrector here. Oh, I think I forgot to mention the Chanel green corrector here. So I've talked about this several times on my channel, more in the springtime before summer. But now that my skin is back to being very pale, this is really awesome for canceling out redness. And it's also amazing for mixing a little bit of that into any foundation that is just a little bit too pink or a little bit too peachy. That really neutralizes it in such a beautiful way. The NYX one back here does the same thing basically, but I just don't like this one as much as the Chanel. I found it dried out pretty quickly. And I also find that it doesn't really do anything for the texture of my skin. The Chanel one I find to be quite smoothing and blurring, but the NYX one is really just good for just adding that pigment in there, which is useful as well, which is why I still have it in my top drawer here. And then here's the other mascara that I alluded to. This is the Bite mascara. It's just a mini size. You can't get this anymore, I don't think, unless some retailers still have a little bit of Bite in stock. I just had that and wanted to use it, so I use that occasionally, but I'm more going to the Tower 28 and that L'Oreal one on a daily basis. Then of course here I have my Lisa Eldridge Pink Moon highlighter. This is now my second bottle. I went through an entire one and I'm now on my second bottle. I love this under my eyes and then kind of swept all over my cheeks and cheekbones and temples. Underneath makeup mostly is how I use it. And it's just a perfect color. It has a little bit of peachiness, so I find it does a good job of canceling out, again, a little bit more of that kind of bluey, purpley tone that can sometimes appear under my eyes, in addition to the Charlotte Tilbury corrector doing that. And it adds this beautiful illumination. It adds a slightly tightening effect, which I find helps to just further depuff my eyes a little bit. I do quite a lot to try and depuff my eyes in the morning, and that's kind of the last step of that whole procedure. And then last but not least, we have some foundations here. So I have the Rare Beauty Tinted Moisturizer. This is, again, the lightest shade. This Rare Beauty and the Monika Blunder that I showed you earlier. Those are the two closest, like, perfect matches for my skin. They're really nice and light, and they just have the perfect tone to them. So I really like that one, and I love the finish that Rare Beauty gives to me. My skin might be a little bit sensitive to it. That's another thing, kind of like the House Labs bronzer. I haven't fully determined. There is a sunscreen component in that Rare Beauty one, which I suspect might be causing some breakouts and irritation on my skin, but I'm not certain. So I have to just continue to use it and kind of monitor. It can be really hard to tell sometimes what is actually causing skin issues, and it could even just not be products themselves. It could just be hormones and so on. So next we have the Chanel No. 1 foundation. This is in the shade BD01. It's a bit too dark for me in this season, so these days if I'm using that one, I will usually mix it with the Danessa Myricks White Vision Cover, and that really brightens it up and lightens it up super easily. I can also get away with a thin layer of this on my face and then going in with one of those really light concealer, so like the Huda one or the Hourglass Birch does a pretty good job with that too. This foundation here I haven't spoken about on my channel yet. It's fairly new. This is the Hourglass Ambient Soft Glow Foundation, and I am completely in love with this. I think it looks absolutely gorgeous on the skin. I have, again, the lightest shade, which is described as a cool undertone, and it is a little bit cool, but it's nowhere near as pinky as I was afraid it would be. I decided to go with this shade because it seemed to be significantly lighter than the next two shades up in the range, and I really wanted to get something that I hopefully wouldn't have to mix with that White Vision Cover. I love the White Vision Cover, but it's a super pigmented and very thick formula, so sometimes I struggle to get a small enough amount of that out, and I just wanted to have certain things that I wouldn't have to use that with, and that Hourglass foundation is perfect for that. My favorite way to wear it is mixed with just a touch of the green color corrector, which doesn't give me the same kind of thickness as the Danessa Myricks, so that is a really nice mix in for the Hourglass. The green just neutralizes the kind of pinkiness just enough for that one, so that's gorgeous. I'll have to use that on my channel at some point coming up. And we have the Dior Backstage foundation. I haven't actually used this yet this fall. I was using it in the spring, and then I stopped using it in the summer, but I brought it out because I just wanted to get kind of back into the rotation. That's another one that will probably need to be mixed with a little touch of the Danessa Myricks, or I'll have to use that really light concealer, the Huda one or the Hourglass, to make that one really work because it is a little bit too dark for me. And then right back here I have my two Nars light reflecting foundations. So I have the shades Siberia and Oslo, and I have to mix them together in equal parts because Siberia is very yellow and Oslo is incredibly pink. So neither of them works on its own for me, but mixed together they do make a perfect shade, and that's one that I don't have to mix with anything else to lighten it up. I think it's a really beautiful combination, and I love the way it looks on my skin. I found in the summertime I was using the shade Mont Blanc, which was just in like a tiny little sample that I'd gotten from Sephora, and that was the right depth of shade for me for summer. But for some reason I found every time I put it on this summer, I wanted to take it off fairly soon after. There was just something about the shade that was not working for me. It almost looked kind of gray on my skin. I don't know, it was very weird because I didn't notice it the first time I had tried that out, but I noticed over the summer every time I used it, I really didn't like the way it looked on me. But now that I'm back to the paler shades, these ones are working beautifully for me. None of that weird gray thing or anything. They just look really nice on the skin. So that is my top drawer makeup. I'm just going to quickly bring you up onto the counter because I just have a couple of other things up there and then we'll be all finished. There's the Westman Atelier powder. I've got to put that back in. It keeps falling over, so it's kind of annoying. So here I have some brushes. Actually, these brushes usually don't live in the bathroom, so I'll just move those. These are my everyday makeup brushes. Again, I switch these out from time to time, but I always just like to have, you know, something for blush, something for powder, something for powder highlighter. I like to have a few eye brushes for really simple, straightforward eye looks. A lot of Rephr brushes in there, a lot of Sonia G. And I try to make sure that I have brushes for both powders and for creams in this little jar here. And then right over here, I just wanted to show you, these are the last things. I have my Merit Great Skin Serum here right on the top of my counter, so that's very easily accessible. I have my Victoria Beckham clear gloss. This is the shade Ice. This is my second of this, and you can see I'm almost finished it. This is just my favorite thing to wear all the time on my lips. Basically, it's really nourishing. I like to say about it that it just brings out the best that my lips have to offer. So it just enhances the natural color of my lips and makes them look really plump and healthy. And then here I have the Dior lip oil. This is the pink shade, so I think it's the like original shade of this, and this is a fairly new one as well for me, but this feels very similar actually to the Posh glosses, so I'm really happy with this one. This one has a scent. It's kind of a minty vanilla scent, and it has a little bit of a minty feel on the lips, but it feels super nourishing, kind of like that Mario stick that I showed you in the drawer. Similar color to that, so it's almost like a clear, but it just has a little hint of pink, which looks really nice on the lips. And then since you can see it in the frame here, this is my Beauty Blender solid cleanser. I have this jumbo size because I was going through the smaller sizes so quickly. I try to stay on top of keeping my brushes and sponges nice and clean, so although that really is supposed to live in one of the drawers, it is often just out on the counter. So since we've already seen Eva and Xander, I thought I'd show you Freddie for the outro here. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this kind of a different format and just seeing the makeup that currently lives in my top drawer. Let me know if you have any questions or comments below. I always love to see those. And if you'd like to see more from me and you haven't subscribed to my channel already, I would love for you to do so. Say bye, Freddie. Oh. All right, bye. Thanks for watching.